Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the Industry Forum for T2. Something different to start with this time. Remember this session, a bit of housekeeping. This session will accrue GC Plus points for you. The activity link will be popped into the chat shortly. Please ensure you have your mics off and feel free to place your questions in the chat right throughout the session. So let's get into it for T2, the industry panel. The theme today is women in the workforce. And some of the key topics in today's discussion will include work-life integration, working across generational work styles, lifting up the next generation, owning your voice, and how to swim with the sharks. So joining us this afternoon are our fabulous industry panel. Joyee has been working as an internship coordinator for 2 years. Her role is to assist university students and graduates to find an internship. Welcome. Next, Ceylan Ada. Ceylan is an entrepreneur and she's the president of the Sydney MUSIAD Women Committee. I could be wrong, and I'm sure Ceylan will clarify that. It's a global business network. And finally, Nazley Khan. Nazley is the principal solicitor at Blackstone Legal. She is also the Sydney lead at the Crescent Institute. So welcome everyone, welcome to the panel for T2. I'll throw a question to Nazley. Can you give us a bit of a brief on your career pathway and how did you get to where you are today? Nazley.
Sure. Thank you, Jared. And thank you to MIT for having me on the panel today. It's an honour to be here to speak with everyone here. So basically, an overview of my professional career. After leaving high school, I commenced a commerce law degree. I was very lucky just a few years into that degree to be provided with an opportunity to actually go into business. So I ended up going into a retail franchise business with some partners and ran that business for quite a number of years whilst I did my degree part-time. So I gained some invaluable experience early on in my career, running several businesses under a popular franchise brand. Coming towards the end of my degree, I decided, look, I've done a law degree. I would like to practice and wanted to get my foot in the door. So I ended up transitioning out of the business and started my law career. So I practiced as a lawyer. I've been practicing as a lawyer ever since then and was working in mostly commercial firms here in Sydney. And recently I decided to go out on my own, basically going back to what I did previously, which was working for myself. And now I've started my own commercial practice in Sydney.
Very well done. Very well done. Great story. Ceylan, can we hop over to you?
Hi. So I'm Ceylan Ada. I am the president of MUSIAD, which is an independent industrial artist, and it's an international global business networking market there. I'm the president in the Women's Committee. I'm a journalist at Turkish Media Press. I am currently studying an MBA and an executive MBA with UTS. I'm an entrepreneur, so I have Brains Are Us, which incorporates over 12 years of our own businesses, which covers a few range of different, I'm a very adaptive leader, I think, with our businesses. So we have solar panels, retail stores, and, wholesaling clothes, so retail as well. So I have a very broad perspective there with who I am. So we've got Green Heart Solar Tech Bid, which is one of the first established clothes range for Muslim wear that we bring into Australia as well. So very blessed to have, global networks that we can bring into Australian work beside. Yeah, and that's me.
Joyee.
Hello. So my name is Joyee. I work for CareerDC with my dad. So how I started was I was still studying at university with my Bachelor's of Commerce. I just came back from exchange from Tokyo. And then from then I just knew that working with international students or helping international students was something I wanted to get into. So when I found an internship that CareerDC offered, it was to initially help students find internships. It was something that I wanted to get into. So once I completed my internship, and then lucky enough, I was hired, and here I am now.
Great story. And with internships, Joyee, in the current environment, just a quick question, virtual internships, what are your thoughts around virtual internships? Because many MIT students are actually undertaking virtual internships at the moment. So what are your thoughts around virtual internships? I
think virtual internships is a fabulous way to provide students with opportunities, especially in our current environment of like COVID and also the borders closing, with a lot of students unable to get that international experience that they've always wanted, even though they're like studying at an international university. Also with online internships, they're provided with a lot of tasks and projects that are really related to their studies. And also they're not doing all the mundane work like grabbing coffee or something for their supervisor. It's mainly about the works.
Nazley, I'll throw a question to you. What does it mean for women to have a voice in meetings or within their organisation?
That's an interesting question. It's actually one thing that it's a tough one, because it still is I have to say, from my experience, even currently, it's a tough one for me, even still. There has been a perception of women in meetings or these sort of similar situations where, you know, a female, she might be perceived as being too aggressive, or her voice might not be heard, or, you know, views may not be taken on. Okay, so this is a problem that women are still grappling with. Okay, and going back to, as I said, I still haven't figured out myself, you know, what's the best way around it. A couple of things I can mention though is that, you know, you don't have to be aggressive to get your point across. Okay, you can be assertive without being aggressive. Okay, I think one thing it comes down to is being an effective communicator. And I think perhaps in meetings or when you're communicating with people, try to be effective in your communications and put across your point effectively and concisely. If you can make a good point, then people will be more likely to respond. Okay, and you won't have to sort of get caught up in the, you know, is she sort of being aggressive, or is she not, or is she being heard, or, you know, think about making a good point, because people respond to good points.
Ceylan, I'll bring you into the conversation. What are your thoughts around this?
I think for women to be heard is very important within our communities, especially with this day and modern age, where we can feel, you know, indoors and shut off from being able to talk to other people. I think COVID pandemic has added to this issue as well. To be able to express ourselves is absolutely vital. I'm pretty blessed to have a media behind me, or to be able to express myself in certain areas, maybe workplaces. Now, some women don't even have that opportunity. And I think as a community, to be together and to support each other in the means of, you know, just uplifting, doing talks like what you're doing right now, Jared, you know, having meetings together, having local MPs get involved with women and families, and just to have them express of what they're feeling and what their issues are. I think then that pain can be taken away and resolved easily. Yeah.
Joyee, what are your thoughts?
I agree with the other two women that have already spoken before me. I think a way that like women can be heard in the workplace pretty much starts off with whoever has the most power in the company. So if someone in their company like provides that opportunity and also allows people to be more open, would provide more opportunities for women.
Ceylan, coming back to you, and we'll touch on entrepreneurship now. What are the challenges or barriers perhaps to women in, we'll bring in general business as well, but you know, we can be specific about entrepreneurship. What are the challenges or barriers, do you think? You've got a view on that?
Oh, challenges and barriers. Look, there's always barriers within everything. I don't know if you're referring to me as a female, as a woman, to be able to be within entrepreneurship. There's always going to be challenges for men and women, regardless, in everything. Resilience would be the one thing that you need to have. The other thing that you would need to, you know, be precise is about having your Northern Star and knowing what your goal is within your workplace. So I think having that goal, that aim, will help you in entrepreneurship to know where you're going, what you're doing, and to stay strong within, you know, a business. That can be any business. That can be any business that you construct within any field. As long as, you know, you've got your connections, you've got your networking right, you've got your management skills right, the rest should be fine. And the rest is just resilience and knowing where you're going.
There was something in that I was going to say. How do you create opportunities for yourself? How do you create those?
Creating
and I'll throw it over, you know what, I'll throw it open to Nazley and also Joyee, anyone who'd like to contribute to that. But, you know, how do you create, given where you are in industry, in the workforce, how do you create opportunities? Because we've got a lot of students. I'm looking at the list and there's probably about 45 participants in this session, and many of them are about to graduate or you know, and they're going out into the community and going out into the workplace. How do they create challenges? What are your experiences? What have your experience been? But also to translate a message or provide a message to those watching. So how do you create those opportunities?
So was that question to me, Jerry?
Oh, yeah, to start off with. But
or did Nazley want to?
Go ahead, Nazley. Yeah, feel free.
I can start off with.
Yeah,
so,
right.
Well, for myself, when I first started university, it pretty much started with a clean slate. Like I had nothing, I had no employable skills. I've never worked in my life. I don't have any of those. Like I just came fresh out of high school. But the way that I was able to provide more opportunities for myself is to go out there and try new things, like be involved in the community. For myself, I was involved in around maybe 5 to 7 different programs at university, which essentially gave me a lot of other opportunities, which include like when I was applying for exchange, they needed to look into like, what have I been involved in? Am I an active student? Am I someone that can represent the university well when I'm abroad? And then when like with all those experience, I was able to gain that exchange, but also with all those skills and experiences that I have, I was able to gain a job out of it as well. So I highly suggest to just be actively looking for opportunities for you to be involved in.
Nazley?
Sure, thank you. 2 points I can make. I can't emphasize enough networking and making connections. This is very important. In my experience, most of my opportunities have arisen through my networking and through the connections I've made through those networks. So whether that be business opportunities, work that I've attracted, or work that I've done with non-profit organisations, just in general, most of them come through that avenue. So network as much as you can and build connections with people and build genuine connections with people, and then you'll get an opportunity to explain to those people what you do, what you're good at, what your skills are, you know, generally what you're doing, and then you'll find opportunities will arise for you once people learn what you do and what you're good at. Okay. Number 2 point I'd like to make on that one is take whatever opportunities come your way. Okay, I've done things before where I didn't have the experience or the skills, and I just took the opportunity because I thought, okay, it seems like a great opportunity, and you'll learn how to do things and you'll just gain invaluable experience that way. So if an opportunity comes your way to do something, go ahead and take it. Take that risk, take that challenge, you'll be fine.
Well, on that, we had a piece of advice provided to us in a session previously by a graduate from 219, and she was an accounting, an MPA student, Masters of Professional Accounting, and her words of advice would be, or were, don't be afraid. Be confident, don't be afraid of engaging with industry. Would you agree with that?
100%. Don't be afraid. You do, you know, we all go through that where we have sort of self-doubt, lack some confidence throughout our career, throughout our journeys. And it goes back to, I agree with what Ceylan said, you do have to have a sort of resilience as you go along as well, and you'll build that up. But definitely that's an important factor. But yes, try to, we all have those fears, try to overcome them, take the opportunity. You'll find that, you know, it wasn't so scary after all. Okay, once you get into it.
Ceylan, your thoughts?
Absolutely agree with Nazley as well. So you're always developing. We always have to know that we're always developing. This could be even free work, as we've all stated. Building a skill, building a development stone, making connections is a vital part of our businesses and our entrepreneurship. Networking is not, we can't create opportunities if we're not networked. We have to make them connections in order to get somewhere. And that might not make us happy at times, but you just have to be patient, expressing yourself and being unique. So being proud of who you are as a unique person within that business, bringing something new. You know, you can be someone so different, but that's fine. Don't be scared. Don't hold back and just be yourself. Having an opinion, vocalizing your thoughts and being heard and seen is so important. So keep on going. Don't give up, because there's going to be so many obstacles. You just have to keep on going. You will find your path and your way according to who you are within your sphere. And I think it's all your authentic way. I think everybody has their own way and there is not one way. So just go for it and grab it.
I see a wonderful student on screen right now, and she'll be surprised that I've actually mentioned her, but Yavashi. Yavashi is yes, she's smiling right now. She's an outstanding student. She really is. And I think we'll see great things from Yavashi in times to come.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think Yavashi is fantastic. So, and everyone else, obviously, that have joined us today. But how about the following statement? I'll throw this to the panel. Workplace leaders need to understand what makes millennials different and implement strategies to help them succeed. Your thoughts?
I can start off and I can give some viewpoints on that, Jared. Millennials definitely, the workplace is different for them. When I started out in my career and my professional career, it was very different. You went to work and you did the work, and that was what was expected of you. It wasn't really, you know, a big deal if you didn't have many other skills, as long as you knew how to do the work, and that was done at the end of the day. As I progressed through my career, it started to change. Employers wanted you to engage in business development as well. So you sort of had to know how to do that, as well as knowing how to do your job as well. Unfortunately, what my experience was that your employees had this expectation of you, but didn't actually train you on how to do that, how to do business development. And so you often sort of lacked those skills. Now it's changing even more. As an employer myself, I'm finding that I look to employees who've got lots of different skills. So it's not only, you know, if they're coming to working for me as a lawyer, it's a given that they should know how to sort of, work as a lawyer. I mean, they'll be trained, but I'm finding that they have other skills which are very valuable. And these are in terms of, it can be business development, but technology as well. It's so important now. And the way we're marketing and communicating and doing things is completely different. And I've worked with millennials who have these different skills, and I've utilized those. And I think that's great. And so if I'm looking for someone now or to work with in the future, if someone's got those additional skills, I will sort of bring them on board, as opposed to, someone who hasn't developed some side skills or additional skills such as that.
Ceylan, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think like with millennials, it's very different, and the generations that we have kind of have gaps in between. It's very different because we have a set of generation who is more skill based and then more technological. I think having both skill and look, having them all in perspective, I think having all of them, integrating them into new strategies and using them all as strengths works better within the workplace to be more efficient within workplaces. I think we have to be more adaptive as leaders to have accepted all the different styles of, generations that we have at the moment, and how they work. Everybody's unique to what their generation was. And it's absolutely okay to have, the Instagrammers or the Facebookers, because sometimes that's where work comes from. But see, the older bosses might think, oh, what are they doing on there? It's actually different strategies and how we can bring income. So yeah, just having the median.
On that, there's a famous YouTube clip of a millennial interview and the distinction between the older generation and the younger. She's using the phone, or the candidate's using a phone and been on it all night, on Instagram, you name it, on the digital platforms, or the social platforms. And, you start at 8 o'clock in the morning, but she's under the impression that you start at 8 o'clock at night, but I don't get up till 10 o'clock. Right. So this is exactly what you're saying. Joyee, how about your thoughts?
One of Nazley pointed out something about how like the newer generation are looking for something more different in the workplace. And I've also seen that in the companies that I've worked like alongside as the host companies of our interns, especially in the interviews that they provide and perform for the students, where instead of asking them, oh, what do you know? How can you bring value to our company? It's more like, oh, what is your personality? What are your interests in our industry? What are your interests outside of work? So they're more looking into their personality to see if they're suitable for the company instead of their set skills.
What responsibility do we each have in making a difference for those who follow us? Your thoughts? I'll throw it open to the panel. Nazley?
Sure. Responsibility. Look, personally speaking, I try to make an effort to provide help to anyone who needs it, male or female. But if we're talking specifically female, because I do understand the challenges that females can face. So, simple things as just providing advice, being there as a support. I am involved in mentoring programs as well. So that's another good way to sort of assist. But, putting yourself, giving of your time, basically, okay, giving your time freely. I think that's quite important, and giving advice and, being there for people if they need that support.
Joyee?
I believe like one way, if you're someone who has like a more open personality, it would be good if you can include someone who's quite shy into the conversation or into the activity, because then you provide them an opportunity to show like what they can provide and what they can like gain from that opportunity. Because it's like, if the same people are always talking, you end up not having new ideas. So when you allow others to talk, and others who are quite shy but still have great ideas, you get a better answer from the activity.
And just remember, for those participants, those students that are joining us, the GC plus points you can accrue for this session. Now, Ceylan, over to you. Thoughts?
So I think we can support each other by having sufficient communication. This could be through work colleagues, students, peers, family. Support networks within each other is the base foundation, I find. For example, with our MUSIAD Women's Group, we have organised psychological groups webinars, and we found that so beneficial. When we think about it, our psychological well-being, it empowers us to be more important. We know our roles, and it makes us stronger. So having mental health that is strong, it builds better families, better communities, and therefore we are all, you know, integrated within each other, more happy and stronger with a mental sense. So being open-minded and being inclusive would be another one as well.
All right. What are the ways women, men, those in the workplace, what are ways those can advocate for promotions and pay increases? Salary and wages, or salary, is always a sticky subject, isn't it? So Nazley is smiling, and I think she's ready to go with an answer.
That is another difficult question.
Do you want me to pass it on to Joyee to start with?
You can pass it on to Joyee for now.
All right, Joyee, I'll bring you in.
I don't have much of a comment on this.
I know, and to play it safe, because I know who's watching. I know someone is watching. So yes, what we'll do is hand it back. Ceylan, how about you?
Okay, so can you rephrase the question again, please, or repeat?
Okay, we'll talk about women in the workplace. We'll draw it back to that.
Women in the workplace and
what are ways women can advocate for promotions and pay increases?
Look, I think with women, it's different because we do have responsibilities, household, you know, non-paid chores that we have to do, children and whatnot. So with the pay increase and promotions, I think, look, it's great to be patient, but I hear a lot of stories, that be lawyers, that be you know, people working in retail or whatever not branch, that they kind of fear asking their boss for a raise or a promotion. And the boss, don't forget, won't give it to you unless you voice yourself up. So maybe, you know, having a slow increment of saying, you know, I've just thought about my retail job and that I've spent X amount of hours and I'd like to be promoted into this section. Know where you're going. So if you know where you're going from the beginning to go up to the next step, you know, many leaders are very happy to move and promote women in that sense. But you have to be realistic at the same time to do with my responsibilities. Do I have the time to, you know, be within that promotion and sufficiently, you know, be able to pull that off? Look, it is a sticky question. I did look into the stats as well. I think there's a committee which actually the Advocate for Workplace Gender Equality agencies that we can look into, and the guidelines. I think that's very important. And there is a different culture. Look, I think there is a very big culture within workplaces of gender differentiality, and the perspectives that we have are very different. We need to build that it is okay for women to be paid the same as men, and we need to lift that barrier. So yeah, I represent women as an executive myself, as a leadership role. I try to, and I hope that everybody takes it on board as well. Thank you.
Nazley, we'll come back to you.
I can make a couple of points on this. In terms of promotion, especially if you're in a sort of business corporate environment, there'll be two factors here. Number one is whether you're meeting the KPIs Okay, and you should be able to, you know, judge and assess whether you'll meet the KPIs or if you've exceeded, etc. And you should be able to present that. But secondly, and it's, you know, it's not sort of written down on paper, is actually whether you're going to get the promotions, not just your KPIs, but whether your superiors actually like you. Okay, so this is a sort of unspoken, you know, sort of culture. I have seen instances where people have been overlooked for promotion. They've exceeded KPIs, but they just, you know, management didn't think that they would be, you know, would fit in with them. So they were overlooked, okay? And on that point, I think women do need to be, and this will be males as well, but women do need to be careful. I've had experiences myself. You might not realize it at the time, but you know, if men are sort of engaging in activities with each other, workplace activities, social activities, male colleagues, they are actually building a rapport or getting the opportunity to build that rapport, which women don't have. Just a personal example from my experience is that I was working in a firm and my partner would go for a coffee every day with my male colleague, and it wasn't sort of anything he was consciously sort of trying to do. It was just they were mates and they would go for a coffee every day. But in saying that, I recognized that my colleague was probably getting a lot more value, or although we're building a rapport, he was probably learning skills or, you know, developing, and so he would have that advantage. And things like that, they're subtle things, but they're important things. And especially for women, and so you probably might need to address these types of issues during your career, because then they will affect, you know, down the track whether you get a promotion or not.
I always ask this of the panelists every event that we do, every forum. I'm sorry to put you on the spot because it wasn't in the brief, but it's not a hard question, or maybe it could be. What is one word that best describes you, Nazley?
Resilient.
That is a common thread of response. Ceylan, one word?
I don't have any words. I am every word. Let's do that. Let's take that. Cool. I am all words.
I'll take that on. Joyee, I will definitely take that on. Joyee, what's the one word for you?
Adventurous.
Adventurous. Okay, great. And look, just remember the whole session is open for Q&A. All right. So if you do have a question, please pop it in the chat, and our speakers will certainly try to address them. Okay. So please put the questions in the chat, and we can directly address them, or try to directly address them. Okay. So one of the topics in the intro that I read out was how to swim with the sharks. And I thought, or a few people might not really understand that, but this is what this is about. So what are the challenges? And I'll throw this up to the panel again, whoever wants to respond. What are the challenges women face in a male-dominated workplace? And what are some of the strategies women find helpful as they try to stay afloat and keep swimming? Anyone wanting to take that one on?
I'll start first.
Right, yep.
From my experience with the students that I've worked with, a lot of the industries are mainly male dominant, such as, for example, such as engineering. Some of the companies only want male candidates, which is quite sad because both women and males can do the same type of tasks in the same industry. But I believe like sometimes we do send female students, but the only reason they accept those female students is because they have a different skill, or a skill that they're specifically looking for that specific project that they're working on. So for example, sometimes they say, oh, we need a male candidate to go onto fields, be able to drive and have skills in Revit. So if a female already has those skills, and the only reason why they're not taking her on is a female, most of the time they do reconsider, because she has the skills and she's able to do the work. So why not take her on?
Nazley?
Sure. Just going on from what Joyee was saying, yes, one of the challenges is sort of being, you know, overlooked, or maybe you're perceived as not being as capable. In the legal profession, we're still struggling with this bias, even in, you know, this day and age. One personal experience I can relay is when I was working, and I worked on a significant piece of litigation, and we were starting another piece of litigation which was essentially the same, and my partner wanted to give that matter to a junior colleague of mine who didn't have the experience, basically, doing that. And I thought that was quite sort of interesting. And actually the reason he gave to me was, I think it should go to such and such because the client is a male, and I just think, you know, two guys might, it would be better if it's just a male lawyer. So you got to pick and choose your battles. And so I decided, you know, I was wondering what to do, but I decided actually to speak up about it and said, look, I addressed it with the partner. I said, look, I've actually got the experience. You know, I got a good outcome. I think it would be good if I actually did the matter instead of my colleague. My partner came around to it, gave me the matter. And so I think you sort of need to speak up, you know, in certain situations to overcome those sort of challenges. The second thing that I can suggest is for women, because there are, you know, a few of these challenges, find yourself a good mentor. I think it's very important, whatever field or profession you're in, to have a good mentor. They'll be able to help you in many different ways, not only just, you know, to progress your career, but also to help you and give you advice in these sort of situations.
Ceylan?
I agree with Nazley. We do have to amplify women's voices and ideas. We need to mentor our women, so being a good mentor, promoting women. So, you know, in the workplace when you are hiring, to keep considerate of what the ratio is of who you're hiring and how many women to men, and how it's fair. Well, let's hope that New South Wales probably also has some more women in the cabinet. So yeah, we just need good role models. You know, be a good role model yourself, because things start from yourself. Yeah, and I'm probably trying to like close the wage gap would be another one to empower women, because when you give the same amount of wage to a man as a woman, then they feel, you know, this equal. But when we're having workplaces underpaying women, then that tends to be, you know, that it gives that tendency of, oh, am I good enough? Am I valued enough within this workplace? So yeah, so helping close, and probably, you know, looking into policies of like having fair parental leaves. For me, that was an issue. You know, I'd have to leave things when I'm a parent. So yeah, working within policies and removing gender biases within organisations is really important.
Yeah.
To stay afloat.
Yeah. Many of it, just generally, I think, you know, during the pandemic, it's been a struggle for a lot of people. And, you know, it's been going on now, you know, a year and a half plus. And in respect to students generally, and with specific reference to international students where they've encountered quite a few issues, and their mindset is, look, it's becoming far too hard. I'm giving up. I just can't do this anymore. And they withdraw from study or whatever the case. And not just international students, but also domestics, to students generally. What are and they see only at the moment a brick wall in front of them. They're midway through their studies, or they're just starting their studies, and they see a brick wall in front of them. And they can't see that light at the end of the tunnel in terms of employment, graduate employment. And they hear in the media and from social circles, their social environment, that, you know, oh, you're not going to get a job. It's too hard. They're not going to hire you. What would your words of advice be? And this is to the general panel. What would your words of advice be to those students who are currently either watching here in the session or just generally? What would your words of advice be to those students that are having difficulty day to day? Nazley?
I thought I might let my colleagues or fellow panelists address that. One person might be in a better position to do that.
All right, Ceylan?
Look, I think we shouldn't see a brick wall because we're the ones who build that brick wall, Jared, right?
Yeah.
I think we can break that wall one by one, and it might get hard halfway, but at the end, that brick wall can come down, move forward, take it down one step at a time and see the end, because no matter what, once you move away from your goal and the end of that tunnel light, I found for myself, whenever I let go, I had to get back into it anyway. Get it over and done with, move forward. Isn't that our emblem? Isn't that what we represent? We move forward all the time.
Of course. And can you be my motivational speaker every day from what you just said? I'd love to hear that. I'd love to hear that every day from you. Joyee, what are your thoughts? What would your words of advice be to students?
Especially, I find like mostly a lot of people are feeling this depression, this sadness from just doing the same thing every day, not being able to go out. My advice is maybe try something new. Like if you're finding your degree is, let's say, a little boring and doesn't seem like something you want to do now, you can take a break from it and then go on and try something else. Like try a short course that you've been interested in, or try to learn a skill that you've always wanted to gain, but you didn't have the time to. So it's a good time to just take a break and do something you want and just gain that momentum again and that excitement in your life. And then once you're finished with that, maybe you want to go back to your degree, into your studies or whatever you've been doing. And then you'll find a new pathway or a new light of why you wanted to do that, why you started that degree in the first place.
Nazley?
Sure. Don't be encouraged by setbacks. Think of it, if something doesn't work out for you, think of it as being an opportunity that's going to direct you somewhere else. Okay, this is just, nothing or rarely anything goes to, perfect plan. So always keep that in mind. And so if there's a detour or if, there's a change, don't sort of get too stressed or upset about it. Okay, just assess the situation and go, okay, well, what can I do in the circumstances? And you'll often find, things will work out better than what you thought.
We do have a question. My question for the panelists is, what are some things to look out for women who are just starting their career? Nazley, we'll keep going with you.
Sure. I think I mentioned before, find a good mentor. I think that, one thing that I can take from my experience and that I sort of tell people, I think it's very important to find it. And you might have to go through a few mentors. There are good mentors, bad mentors. Okay, you'll sort of see the difference, but definitely seek out someone who can assist you. It will, provide a lot of value to you.
Now, I've put the GC Plus activity link in the chat for everyone. So once we provide you with the code, then you can click on the link, and then you'll need that code, obviously, to complete the form. But it's 5 GC Plus points for you today, the students accruing. And I heard a student that's regularly attending our career workshops on the Monday and Tuesdays has already amassed a lot of points. I think he's the leader. So the link is in the chat. So let's have the next question. And what are best practices in creating an environment that allows for a healthy distinction between work and home life? And how can women continue to support one another during and beyond the pandemic? Nazley? Or I'll give you time to prepare. I can see panic. All right, Ceylan, here you go. We'll give you a break. Ceylan?
Yeah, so I think, look, balance is the key to life. That's with everything we do. That's with food. That's with intake and output of everything of our energy that we have within ourselves. I think to have that balance is just to know where your barrier is. Where is my line, and how much, do I have to, stay to that stage where I'm like, okay, this is enough. Let's go take a breath. especially with the COVID pandemic. You know, having children at home and homeschooling is such a big issue as you're trying to work, as you're trying to study yourself, as you're trying to do things and have so much responsibility. It's not easy. It won't be easy. It's not going to be easy, but you do get through it. And for me, it's structure. I have structures and timetables of timetables of timetables of timetables. So that kind of gives me a leeway and a backup plan. So if this falls out, then this is what I'm going to do. And it kind of eases your stress, you know, having a plan for your studies and also your work life and within your children as well is so important. And just to be like, you know, if it doesn't work, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. It isn't. If I fail, nothing's going to happen. Me being healthy is the most important thing. Being alive is the most important thing. COVID will affect us, but we have the best of, you know, just standing strong as women, as mothers, as parents, and as people who have been working through the pandemic.
Joyee?
Just for myself, I usually just don't go into the places of my house that are set for work. So if I'm not working, I'm not going to go to my desk. I'm not going to use the computer to do recreational things. Like, I move away from that area where I'm supposed to work, which creates that environment where if I'm working, I feel like working. And if I'm relaxing, I'm not thinking about work.
Nazley?
Sure. I think be flexible. I think COVID has shown us that, you know, we can get the work done outside of the traditional sort of rigid structures of, you know, workplace, you know, 9 to 5, sitting in an office all day. It can still get done. Things can still happen. So flexibility, and I think providing that flexibility to employees is quite important. As long as you set what the boundaries are, or set out what your expectations are, okay, and, you know, involves a lot of communication in terms of what work is required, you know, how does it need to be done, when does it need to be done by, and if you can set out those boundaries, then, you know, as long as people do the work, really.
We've got another question from Yavashi. I'm glad that she's asked a question and she's smiling. Thank you, Yavashi. Hello, everyone. My question for the panelists is this. You might come across a number of failures. How did you manage to push yourself regardless of all situations?
I can start with
answering
this question. For me, I have to realize that I have to separate my emotions from that failure first, because essentially, like, when you get a failure, it hits you really hard emotionally, and you have to, like, allow yourself to feel those emotions, but also separate yourself once you've grieved about it and see how you can improve from there, or find something that you can work towards that can overcome that failure in the future. And also know that it doesn't define you. Like, everyone fails and everyone improves, and you can't stick that sticker on your face saying that I'm a failure, because it's only a small moment in your life.
Ceylan?
So the question was, how do you push regardless of where you're at, right?
Yep.
So let me give today as an example. Today is my birthday.
Oh, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Collectively.
Yeah, and so I had family over and I knew I was going on a panel. I have a meeting on today as well, and a massive project. So it's
I thought
over.
I saw balloons in the background somewhere.
So look, you've just got to push through. I've got my son screaming in the background. I can't do anything about it. You've just got to really say, you know what, this needs to get done. This is my responsibility. And it's okay. It's okay to have adversities, but I'll be jumping over these hurdles fine. Sometimes we fall, but we'll get back up. So pushing through. Yeah.
Right. Nazley?
So where do you learn the most from? Out of your failures and out of your mistakes. You know, this is where we gain the most experience. So look at your failures and your mistakes and setbacks as things that you can learn from. Okay, you'll learn from them, you'll learn to do better, you'll learn how to do things better, and it's always going to be self-development for you personally and professionally as well. Okay, as I said before, you're going to have setbacks. Everyone has them. You know, look at the opportunities that will arise from those setbacks. You might go in a different direction, but it's fine. And I agree with Joyee, there is going to be the emotional component. You sort of have to sort of get through that emotional component and then think about, you know, what steps am I going to take next? Okay.
Just a general question, and Yuvashi's got a thumbs up on those answers too, by the way. So how important is your digital footprint in 2021? Nazley, do you want to keep going with that one?
Yeah, so do you mean just having a presence, or what do you mean?
How important, when in terms of acquiring employment or graduate employment, because many of the students will be completing or in the next week or so. How important, we'll specifically say that cohort, how important or how critical is a digital footprint to them? Will employers look at their footprints, content on footprints, mistakes on footprints? Does it play a role in acquiring employment?
Yes. Be careful about your digital footprint. Be careful what you're putting out online on any forum. It is very important, and if there is something that's problematic, you know, it may come up in the future, might not come up now, and it might not even sort of come up to bite you in the employment context. It, you know, might do so in sort of a wider professional or, you know, industry, you know, path or avenue. So yes, be very careful. And you know what, once you put something out there, it's very hard to delete it, retract it. There are things that I've come across with people who I know, you know, going back more than 10 years, and it's still sitting there on the internet, it's still accessible. Okay, and even if you've changed your views, persona, whatever you're doing, it's still there. And if people see it, it will affect you. So yes, be very careful.
Yeah, it can cost, can't it, really? And it can come back to haunt you. I've got one specific example of a student that put a post on in her Instagram, and it said, "I'm a professional troublemaker." So let's see how that goes for her. And I know already what the result is from that. Ceylan, over to you. And we've only got 4 more minutes left before we hand over to the awards presentation with heads of school. So Ceylan, your comment on social media, digital footprint?
Look, digital media is massive. It's a massive market. I've got many family and friends who lead in the, for example, Instagram, you know, social media side of things, and things do come back to you, being that it is retrievable. It's very easy to take a photo of things and spread it out. Legally, I think Nazley would have more with the rights and regulations of what we can do with that, but it does happen. We can't stop it. It's become a mass market where we can't stop. And what I say is, you are your brand. So if you're putting something onto media, you're portraying yourself there as a professional as well. Just be careful of what you do, what you post up. That it doesn't mean that you can't put, you know, pictures of your family and whatnot, but just be careful and vigilant, just so you don't regret it later on.
Joyee?
I don't have anything else to add.
All pretty much on track. All right, I've got one quick question, one left, the last one. My question for the panelists is, are institutions hearing the female voice? And in brackets, do the panelists' interaction with banks or government agencies indicate that the female voice is being listened to wrap it up? Ceylan is smiling. She may have a comment on that.
I'm joking. Well. So we, for example, MUSIAD, I can give as a straight example. My partner is the president there, and it was only for men. And I spoke with Julie Owens, who was at the event, and we were having a brief talk, and we said, there is nothing for women. There is no business community connection thing for women. And that's where I kind of said, you know what, we need a women's one. There is no voice. If you want to be heard, you have to build that. And we're just getting to the peak of that within our generations. So please stand up, grab your voice and voice it out, because no, there is not enough voice. Yeah, I think with governance as well, it's only just starting to grow into a better perspective.
Great, yeah. Nazley, final word?
Well, within the legal profession, there's still a lot of work to be done. There's policies being implemented, such as equitable briefing policies for barristers, and firms are taking them on to make sure that they brief female barristers as well as male barristers. So there are things happening. It has been slow. There's still a lot of work to do, but I echo what Ceylan said, that if you want your voice heard, you're going to have to speak up and do it yourself, and attract people around you who will support you and help you in that, and have the same goal and aim.
All right. Now, this is the GC Plus points. This is in-house, the GC Plus program. Your code for this session, JAN2122 is the code. You'll need that. The activity link is in the chat box. So JAN2122. And you can certainly email me if you've missed that out. So we'll wrap it up because it's award presentation time, and I know there are a lot of people are waiting for this. So we've included MIT Hackathon winners. Yavashi is smiling because there might be something I don't know, Yavashi. So I don't know what goes on. So the MIT Hackathon, we've included this time the winners. The 3-minute thesis will be announced, and also the MIT scholarships from T1, T2, and of course the Impact Award winners from today. So I'd like to say a sincere and happy birthday for one of our panel members again, Ceylan, Nazley, and also Joyee. Thank you so much for joining us today. I think the discussion will certainly benefit those participating. I know there are a few questions there, which is good. Yavashi's clapped, great. So thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you again for career workshops, because I think collectively the students will certainly benefit from hearing each and every one of you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jared.
A pleasure, absolute pleasure.
Absolute pleasure to be representing women and students as well.
Yeah, good. Yeah, 100% supportive of that. Absolutely, 100%, 1,000%.
Thank you, Jared.
That's
it's an
okay,
honour to be here. Thank you.
And Joyee, thank you very much.
No worries.
Thank you, McDad, in the background. And now it is with great pleasure I hand you over to the respective heads of school for the awards ceremony and the announcement of the winners from today and all the rest of the vets. And there you go. Over to you, Professor Johnson.